What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats as well as some excellent attachment combinations for every gun in Modern Warfare 3. And in today's episode, we're going to be covering the brand new battle rifle. This is the SOA Subverter. And starting it off as always, let's have a look at our damage profile. And something interesting with this gun is, unlike the other battle rifles, at least currently, the fire mode doesn't affect our damage. So if you go into semi-auto mode, you're not gaining any damage out of this. And it is going to be a 4 to 5 shot kill depending on your range, and it is worth noting, even though we have a bonus damage zone to the upper torso and arms, it doesn't really matter. In the maximum damage range, it's a 4 shot kill anywhere in the body, and in the minimum damage range, it's going to be a 5 shot kill anywhere in the body. Then when it comes to headshots, we deal 50 damage to the head up close, which means if we can land all 3 headshots in a row, we can actually get a 3 shot kill with this. And at the longer ranges, all you have to do is mix 1 headshot in with that bonus zone in order to cut it back down to a 4 shot kill. As for a rate of fire, this is the fastest in the battle rifle category at 697 rounds per minute, and what this means is we actually have a very good time to kill potential. With a 4 shot kill, we're killing in just 258 milliseconds, which is extremely good for a body shot time to kill in this game. And it's also worth noting, if we manage to land all 3 shots to the head in the maximum damage range, we can potentially kill in 172 milliseconds, but it's pretty difficult to consistently land all 3 of those shots to the head. And like I said, our body shot time to kill is already great, so I'd recommend just aiming for the body. After that though, let's have a look at our damage ranges, and this is where the SOA Subverter isn't quite as good as many of the other battle rifles. That 4 shot kill range is only about 25 meters, and the time to kill does increase pretty sharply after that. So while it's nice and consistent and kills really quickly within that range, it doesn't carry out that versatility at longer ranges like many of the other battle rifles. Now that's not to say that it's completely useless with a 5 shot kill, it's just no longer dominant when you get to those ranges. Additionally, with this gun, our bullet velocity is excellent at 810 meters per second. And now let's get into hardcore game modes, and with this gun, it's always going to be a 1 shot kill anywhere in the body at any range as long as you're not shooting through some form of cover. Next, let's get into Hipfire, and unfortunately, this does have the worst hipfire spread out of all of the Modern Warfare 3 battle rifles, so hipfiring is generally not recommended with this gun unless you're like point blank and in a desperate situation. And then let's get into recoil, and the recoil with this gun isn't terrible by any means. One thing I want to point out is there's a bit of a zigzag there, so you definitely want to be aware of that, and that can throw you off. And another thing that may be a little subtle at first is the initial shots that you fire, they'll kick upward pretty quickly before it settles in and the grouping tightens up a lot. So despite what the total magnitude of recoil may suggest, you definitely don't want to neglect vertical recoil control when creating setups with this gun. After that, let's get into our handling stats, and unfortunately, our aim down sight speed's a bit on the slower side at 278 milliseconds. And it's a similar story with our sprint to fire time. This is on the slower side at 256 milliseconds, and that immediately rules this gun out as being like a highly aggressive sort of a gun. Generally speaking, you're gonna have to play a bit more conservatively compared to a lot of like assault rifles and obviously SMGs. And then when it comes to our reload ad time, this is right around average for a battle rifle, so not amazing, not terrible, it's 1.62 seconds. Now finally, for the base stats of this gun, let's have a look at our mobility stats, and across the board, we're just a little bit below average with all of our movement speeds compared to the other Modern Warfare 3 battle rifles. And as a result, while this gun does have a ton of power potential, you can kill very quickly with it, there are a lot of small downsides that will stack up with this gun to keep it in check and ensure it doesn't become completely overpowered. And with that, at least at the moment, this gun doesn't have any interesting attachments that are worth breaking down and covering. It's just got fairly basic attachments here. So let's just dive right into some excellent attachment combinations I've got for you guys. And the first one I wanted to share is my accuracy build. Now with this reason, the T4LR Saber compensator to help a bunch with horizontal recoil. We're using the SL Skeletal vertical underbarrel grip, which is not only going to help our handling stats, it's also going to help quite a bit with that initial vertical recoil that we experience. We're also using the Dozer 90 long barrel, which is going to help with all of our recoil values as well as our ranges and bullet velocity. Then we've got the Jack glassless optic, which gives us a bit of firing aim stability while just being a nice clean optic. And then finally, we have the Motion V2 heavy stock. And with all of this combined, we have a very accurate gun on our hands with very little horizontal recoil. We have nicely taken care of that initial vertical recoil as well, and that makes us a very accurate and easy to control weapon. However, all of this does come with some key trade-offs. First off, our aim down sight speed and our sprint out time are quite slow, so therefore you don't want to be rushing around with this. It's clearly designed to be hanging back, picking people off at range. And speaking of range, we have increased our range values by about 4.5%, and our bullet velocity is also very slightly increased at 816 meters per second. And overall, this is quite a solid setup if you're just looking for peak accuracy without completely destroying your handling stats on the SOA Subverter. Now let's get into my second build that I actually prefer using most of the time. This is my stealth build. And with this one, we're using the Shadow Strike Suppressor. We're once again using that SL Skeletal Vertical Underbarrel. This time we're using the 30-round magazine, so we don't have to reload quite as often. We've got the range rear grip, and then finally the STT-88 Precision Stock. Now you'll notice I'm not using an optic on this one, and that's totally fine because the iron sights are really good with this gun. Then when it comes to the recoil with this particular setup, it's obviously not nearly as accurate as my previous setup, but it technically is a little bit more accurate than the base recoil of this gun, although keep in mind I'm firing 30 rounds here rather than 20, so it might look like a higher magnitude overall, but it actually isn't. At the end of the day, we're trying to keep ourselves in the maximum damage range with this build anyway though. And with this, we're also slightly improving our aim down sight speed and our sprint out time, and we're keeping ourselves off the radar at the same time. All of our range values are the same, our bullet velocity is the same. So with this one, it's just a nice balanced overall build where I'm improving a bunch of stats without really harming anything in any meaningful way. And like I said, this is my preferred way of using the SOA Subverter in 6v6. And that just leaves us with one last build I wanted to share for you guys, and this is a tac stance build. While I wouldn't say this is the best tac stance gun out there, it is still very effective in tac stance when built correctly. So with this one, we're using the Fervor 7.62 short barrel, the Bruin Bastion angled grip, the 1mW laser box, the STT-88 precision stock, and then finally the 50-round drum mag. And with this, we get quite a tight tac stance spread. It's not the tightest in this game, but it's more than good enough as long as you're keeping yourself within about 20 meters or so. It is worth noting, technically, you could drop that 50-round drum and use the breacher device muzzle to improve your tac stance spread a little bit, but I'd rather make that tiny sacrifice to my tac stance spread in order to have a 50-round drum so I can spray and pray, and I'm not going to be reloading like crazy. And with this build, our aim down sight time is quite slow at 321 milliseconds, but at the end of the day, that doesn't matter nearly as much when using this in tac stance. Our sprint out time is very nicely improved at 215 milliseconds. Our hipfire spread is also improved, although I still wouldn't recommend hipfiring with this unless you're really close quarters. Most of the time, you want to try to make sure you get into that tac stance. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's not the absolute best tac stance build you'll find in this game, but it is very usable. You can definitely find some success with this if you just wanted to use this gun in a slightly different way. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the brand new SOA Subverter. As for my thoughts on this gun, I think it's excellent. I actually think it's balanced quite nicely as well for the most part. Sure, super powerful up close, like I said earlier, but it's nice that they kept it in check by giving it like the worst hip fire, not so great handling stats and mobility stats, and that range definitely holds it back as well. So I think it's reasonably balanced, although I could see an argument that maybe it's a bit too forgiving in that maximum damage range, since you can shoot them anywhere in the body and get a ridiculously good time to kill. But I think time will tell on that one once more people get their hands on it for a bit longer. And of course, these are just my opinions, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this gun in those comments down below. And if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of Gun Guides, I will leave a link to the playlist in the description of the video. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.